Tom lived in a small village surrounded by wide, open fields. The sun rose early every day, and Tom was always up before it, ready to work on his farm. To many people, farming was just a job. But to Tom, it was his whole life. The land had been in his family for years. His father, grandfather, and even his great-grandfather had all worked the same soil. It was not just dirt to him, it was a place full of memories, hard work, and hope. Every morning, Tom put on his old hat and boots and walked across the fields. He touched the dry earth with his hands and looked at the rows of growing crops. Corn, wheat, and some vegetables were growing strong this year. Tom was proud of his farm. He took care of the plants as if they were his own children. The crops needed water, sun, and patience. Tom gave them all these things, and he believed the land would give back in its own time. Tom's favorite part of the year was harvest time. This was when the hard work of many months showed its reward. The golden corn and wheat were ready to be picked. The air was warm but not too hot, and the fields were full of life. The birds sang in the trees, and the wind blew gently through the leaves. The tractor was Tom's best friend during the season. It was old but strong. It had scratches and dents, but it never stopped working. Tom called it Old Blue because of its faded blue paint. Tom loved driving Old Blue across the fields. It was a quiet moment when he could think and feel connected to the land. The tractor was more than a machine, it was part of his daily rhythm. Sometimes, Tom talked to Old Blue as if it could hear him. He told it stories about the past, about his family, and about the future he hoped for. But this year was different. Something was changing. Tom noticed new faces in the village, new rules being made, and more signs posted about what people could and could not do on their land. A group called the Homeowners Association, or HOA, had started to become very active. The HOA was a group that made rules for the neighborhood, mostly about keeping things clean and orderly. Tom usually did not care much about them because his farm was large and spread out. His land was a bit separate from the small houses and streets where the HOA mattered most. However, one person in the HOA had become very strict and loud. Her name was Karen. Karen was known for always following the rules very carefully and making sure everyone else did too. She was quick to complain if she saw anything she did not like. Some people called her HOA Karen because she always wanted to be in charge. Karen had recently started coming around Tom's farm more often. She said she was checking to make sure everything was in order. Tom did not like this. He had always worked hard and kept his farm clean. He did not need anyone to tell him what to do on his own land. But Karen was not the kind of person to back down. She said the HOA had the right to enforce rules on all properties in the area, even farms. This was new to Tom. He had never thought the HOA could tell him what to do on his own farm. Adding to the confusion, Tom had a special agreement with the state government. Many years ago, he had leased part of his farmland to the state for conservation. This meant the government was allowed to use some of his land to protect the environment. It was a good thing because it helped keep nature safe, and Tom got some money to help run the farm. The leased land was large, and the state took care of it carefully. Tom managed the whole farm, but he always remembered that part of it belonged to the state now. This arrangement had worked well for years without any problems. The state workers often visited the land, and Tom helped them when he could. But the HOA and Karen did not know about this lease. They only saw a big farm and a tractor parked outside. One day, when Tom was busy in the fields, something happened that shocked him. He got a call from the local towing company. They said his tractor had been taken away. Tom could not believe it. Why would anyone tow his tractor? It was on his own land. He hurried back to the farm to find the place empty. Old Blue was gone. Tom's heart sank. The tractor was his lifeline during harvest. Without it, the work would be very hard. He felt confused and angry. How could someone take his tractor? He knew it must be Karen or the HOA. But why? Tom had always tried to follow the rules. As he stood there, looking at the empty space where Old Blue had been, Tom thought about the land, the lease, and the new rules. Something had gone wrong, but he did not know what. The peaceful life he had known on the farm was changing fast. Tom knew he had to find out the truth. But he also knew it would not be easy. Tom stood in the middle of his field, staring at the empty space where Old Blue used to be. The tractor was gone, taken away without any warning. His hands clenched into fists, and a heavy feeling settled in his chest. How could this happen? Who had the right to take his tractor from his own land? The phone call from the towing company kept ringing in his mind. They said the tractor was towed because it was parked illegally. But Tom didn't understand. How could his tractor be parked illegally when it was on his own farm? He had the papers for the land and the tractor was never on the road or blocking anyone. He felt confused and helpless. Tom decided he needed answers. He packed his old truck and drove to the HOA office. The building was small and neat, with a big sign that read, Village Homeowners Association. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and old paper. Tom waited nervously in a small room while the secretary went to find the HOA manager. Soon, Karen appeared. She was tall and stern, with sharp eyes that seemed to look right through Tom. She smiled coldly and said, "Tom, I've been expecting you." Tom took a deep breath. "Karen, why was my tractor towed? It's on my land." "I don't understand." Karen folded her arms. "The HOA has rules, Tom. You know that. Your tractor was parked where it shouldn't be. It's a safety concern for the neighborhood." Tom shook his head. "But it's my farm. I'm harvesting my crops. I don't see how this is a problem." Karen's eyes narrowed. "The HOA has authority over all properties in this area, including farms. We received complaints that your tractor was blocking part of the road. That's why it was towed." Tom's heart sank even more. He knew his tractor was never blocking any road. He had parked it carefully near the barn, far from any street. He felt like Karen was making up rules just to bother him. "Karen," Tom said, trying to stay calm, "I have a lease agreement with the state for part of this land. The state has rights here, and I manage the farm for both. I don't think you have the right to tow my tractor without telling me." Karen shook her head. "That lease doesn't change anything. The HOA rules are clear. You should have told us about any agreements or leases. We can't allow equipment parked in places that affect the community." Tom realized that Karen and the HOA didn't know the full story. But he also felt frustrated. Why hadn't anyone asked him before taking his tractor? Why hadn't the HOA talked to him directly? After the meeting, Tom left the HOA office with more questions than answers. He decided to visit the state office to explain what had happened. Maybe they could help him. The state office was a large building in the nearby town. Tom waited in line, holding his papers tightly. When his turn came, he spoke to a kind woman named Sarah. She listened carefully as Tom told her about the tractor being towed and the problems with the HOA. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "Tom, your lease is very clear. The state owns this land, and you have permission to use it for farming. The HOA doesn't have authority over state property. This sounds like a misunderstanding. Tom felt a small hope grow inside him. Can the state help me get my tractor back? Sarah smiled gently. We can write a letter to the HOA explaining the situation. That might help clear things up. But these things take time. Tom thanked Sarah and left the office, feeling a little better. But he knew time was running out. The harvest needed to be done soon, and without his tractor, it would be very hard. Back at the farm, Tom's neighbors had heard about what happened. Some came to offer help. Mrs. Green, who lived nearby, brought him some fresh bread and said, "Tom, don't let those rules stop you. We know this farm belongs to you." Others shook their heads and said the HOA was too strict. "Karen doesn't understand the hard work farmers do," said Mr. Lewis, who owned a small shop in the village. Tom felt grateful for the support. But he also felt tired. He loved his land and his work, but now it felt like a battle he did not want to fight. That night, Tom sat by the fireplace, thinking about his family and the farm. He remembered his father's words, "The land is our life, Tom. We protect it, no matter what." Those words gave him strength. Tom decided he would not give up. He would talk to the HOA again, show them the lease, and try to make peace. The farm was his home, and he would fight for it. But deep inside, Tom knew this was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey. The next morning, Tom woke up early with a determined heart. The sun had not yet risen, but he was already thinking about how to fix the problem with the tractor. He knew he had to show Karen and the HOA the papers proving his lease with the state. Maybe then they would understand and return his tractor. Tom gathered all the documents he could find in the old wooden cabinet in his small farmhouse. The lease agreement was a thick folder, a little worn from many years of use. He carefully flipped through the pages, reading the words again to remind himself of the details. The lease said that the state had permission to use a large part of his farmland for conservation. Tom was allowed to farm the rest, and the tractor was an important part of his work. After breakfast, Tom drove to the HOA office again, clutching the folder tightly. The sky was clear, and the birds were singing, but inside Tom's chest, a heavy worry still lived. He knew this meeting would not be easy. When Tom entered the small office, Karen was already there, speaking to another HOA member. She looked surprised to see him. "Back so soon, Tom?" she asked with a sharp smile. Tom stayed calm and said, "I came to show you something important." He placed the folder on the table and opened it carefully. "This is my lease agreement with the state. It proves that part of this land belongs to the state, and I have permission to farm here." Karen glanced at the papers quickly but did not say much. "I see," she said, sounding less sure than before. "But even if that's true, the HOA rules still apply." Tom shook his head. "No, Karen. The HOA cannot make rules for state property. The lease means the state has authority over that land. And my tractor was parked there, not blocking any road or neighbor." Another HOA member, a quiet man named Mr. Roberts, looked at the papers with interest. "This lease changes things," he said slowly. "Maybe we need to check with the state before making decisions about the farm." Karen crossed her arms and looked away. Tom could tell she was not happy, but she stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I will need to talk to the HOA board. We can't just change the rules without their approval." Tom nodded. "I understand. But I ask you to return my tractor as soon as possible. The harvest won't wait." Karen agreed to try, but Tom left the office feeling uncertain. He did not know how long it would take for the HOA to change their mind. The tractor was still out there somewhere, and every day without it was hard for the farm. Back home, Tom started to think about what he could do next. The farm was quiet, but the work was not. The fields needed care, and the crops were almost ready to be picked. Without Old Blue, Tom had to find other ways to keep the harvest moving. That afternoon, Tom went to visit the state conservation officer, Mr. James. He was a friendly man who had known Tom for years. When Tom explained the situation, Mr. James looked concerned. "This is serious, Tom," Mr. James said. "The lease gives the state rights to the land, but the HOA might not understand it fully. We will send a formal letter to the HOA and explain everything. Maybe that will help." Tom felt grateful for the help. "Thank you, Mr. James. I just want to work on my farm without more problems." Mr. James smiled. "I know, Tom. We will do what we can." While waiting for the HOA's answer, Tom tried to keep busy. He used an old hand tool to cut some small crops, but it was slow work. His back ached, and his hands became sore. He missed Old Blue more than ever. One afternoon, a group of neighbors came to visit Tom. They had heard about the tractor and wanted to support him. Mrs. Green brought some homemade cookies and said, "Tom, don't let the HOA scare you. We know you're doing the right thing." Mr. Lewis, the shop owner, added, "That Karen is too strict sometimes. She doesn't understand farming." Tom smiled, feeling a little stronger. "Thank you all. I'm glad to have neighbors like you." The support from the community gave Tom hope. He realized he was not alone. Many people cared about the farm and the land. Days passed, and finally, a letter arrived from the HOA. Tom read it carefully. The HOA said they would review the lease agreement and meet with the state representatives soon. They promised to work toward a solution, but they did not say when the tractor would be returned. Tom's heart sank again. The harvest was coming closer, and time was running out. That night, Tom sat outside under the stars, thinking about his family and the land. He remembered his grandfather's words, "Farming is not just about planting seeds. It's about patience, courage, and never giving up." Tom took a deep breath and looked at the dark sky. He knew the fight for his farm was far from over, but he was ready. The land was his home, and he would protect it no matter what. Days turned into weeks, but Tom still did not get his tractor back. The harvest season was moving quickly, and every morning he woke up with a heavy heart. The fields were ready, the crops shining golden in the sunlight, but Tom felt powerless without Old Blue. Tom tried to do the work by hand as much as he could. Early mornings and late evenings, he bent over the fields, cutting and gathering small patches by himself. His hands grew rough and blistered, and his back ached from the hard labor. The work that once took a few hours with his tractor now took all day. Despite the pain and exhaustion, Tom never gave up. He knew the harvest would not wait for anyone. The crops were a gift of the land, and it was his duty to bring them in. But deep inside, Tom felt frustrated and alone. One afternoon, Tom received a call from the HOA. The voice on the other end was polite but firm. "Tom, the board has reviewed the lease and met with state officials. They are still concerned about the tractor being parked in certain areas. They want to discuss a plan with you." Tom sighed. He was glad they wanted to talk, but he wished things could have been simpler. "When can we meet?" he asked. "Tomorrow afternoon," the voice replied. The next day, Tom arrived at the HOA office. Karen was there, along with 3 other board members. Their faces were serious. Tom brought his lease papers and his best calm attitude. Karen started the meeting. Tom, we want to find a solution. We understand your lease with the state, but we also need to keep our community safe and organized. Tom nodded. I agree. I want to work with you, too. But the tractor is important for my farm. Without it, the harvest is difficult. One board member, Mrs. Allen, spoke next. Maybe you can park the tractor in a different spot. Somewhere that does not block roads or neighbors. Tom thought about it. I can try, but I need a place close to the fields. It must be easy to reach so I can work quickly during harvest. Karen looked at him carefully. We can help you find a spot, but we need to set some rules about parking and equipment. Tom agreed, even though it was hard. He felt like he was giving in, but he knew he needed to keep working with them. After the meeting, Tom felt tired but hopeful. Maybe this was the start of a better understanding. But that hope did not last long. The very next day, Tom found a new notice on his farmhouse door. It was from the HOA, and the words made his stomach drop. They were warning him about violations related to equipment on the property. The notice said that if he did not remove the tractor and some other farm tools, the HOA would take further action. Tom's heart pounded. How could this be happening again? He thought they were working toward peace, but it felt like a battle instead. He called the state office again and spoke to Mr. James. The HOA is still threatening me, Tom said. What can I do? Mr. James was patient. Tom, I will speak to the HOA board again. We will try to stop this. But these things take time and patience. Tom nodded. He knew it was true, but patience was running thin. That night, Tom sat alone by the window. The moon was bright, but the farm felt dark and heavy. He thought about his family, the land, and the hard work waiting in the fields. His phone buzzed suddenly. It was a message from Mrs. Green, his kind neighbor. Tom, don't give up. We're here for you. Let's meet tomorrow and see how we can help. Tom smiled faintly. The kindness of his neighbors was like a small light in the dark. The next day, a group of neighbors came to Tom's farm. They helped him move some tools and clean the area near the barn. Mrs. Green baked bread and shared stories to lift Tom's spirits. Mr. Lewis brought some old farm equipment to help with the harvest. Together, they worked side by side. For a few hours, Tom forgot the worries and felt the warmth of friendship. But the tractor was still missing, and the harvest was waiting. Tom realized the struggle was not just about land or machines. It was about respect, understanding, and the fight to keep what was his. He promised himself to keep going. The farm was his home, and he would not let anything take that away. The days grew shorter, and the air started to feel cooler as autumn came closer. Tom woke up every morning feeling the weight of the missing tractor. Without Old Blue, the work on the farm was slow and hard. He had tried everything using hand tools, asking neighbors for help, but nothing could replace the strength and speed of his trusted machine. Tom sat on the porch one evening, watching the orange sun set behind the trees. His mind was full of worry. The crops needed to be harvested soon, or they would spoil in the fields. He thought about the farm, his family, and the promise he made to protect the land. The fight with the HOA was more than just a problem, it was a challenge to everything he believed in. That night, Tom decided to write a letter. He wanted to explain his side of the story clearly, hoping that words might reach the hearts of those who only saw rules and papers. He wrote about the farm, the land, and the tractor that helped him care for both. He told them about the lease with the state and the importance of respecting that agreement. The next morning, Tom drove to the HOA office once again. This time, he handed his letter to Karen directly. Her eyes showed surprise as she read the simple, honest words Tom had written. "Tom," she said quietly, "I didn't know the farm meant this much to you." Tom nodded. "It means everything. I just want to work and take care of the land, like my family always did." Karen looked down at the letter again. "I will share this with the board. Maybe they will understand better." After leaving the office, Tom felt a small hope growing inside him. Maybe Karen and the HOA could see things in a new light. A few days later, Tom got a call from Mr. Roberts, one of the HOA board members who had seemed kind before. "Tom, the board has been discussing your letter and the lease with the state," he said. "We want to meet with you and some state officials to find a solution that works for everyone." Tom's heart lifted. "Thank you. I'm ready to meet anytime." The meeting was scheduled for the next week at the community center. When Tom arrived, he saw Karen, Mr. Roberts, and two other board members waiting. From the state side, Mr. James and another officer came to support Tom. Tom felt nervous but hopeful. The room was quiet as the meeting began. Mr. James spoke first. "The lease gives Tom permission to use the land for farming. The state supports his work and believes farming and conservation can work together." Karen listened carefully. She looked at Tom and said, "I understand now that the farm has a special place in this community. But the HOA is also here to protect the neighborhood." Tom nodded. "I respect that. I want to work with the HOA to keep the peace. I'm willing to park my tractor in a way that does not disturb anyone." The board members talked for a while, asking questions and discussing ideas. After much conversation, they agreed on a plan. Tom would be allowed to park Old Blue on a part of the farm that was away from roads and neighbors. The HOA would not tow his tractor again as long as he followed the rules. Tom felt a deep relief wash over him. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a start. The very next day, Tom went to the towing company to bring his tractor home. When Old Blue appeared on the trailer, Tom smiled and patted its side gently. "Welcome back, friend," he said softly. Neighbors came by to help Tom move the tractor back to its new spot near the barn. There was laughter and cheer as the community came together. Mrs. Green brought pies, and Mr. Lewis told stories from his youth. That evening, Tom sat on the porch, feeling the cool breeze and watching the stars appear in the sky. The farm was alive again, and hope was growing stronger. Tom knew the road ahead might still have challenges, but he was ready. The land was his heart, and with the support of his neighbors and the state, he believed he could protect it for many years to come. As the harvest began in full, Tom climbed onto Old Blue and started the engine. The familiar sound brought a smile to his face. This was his home, and he was finally free to work the land he loved. The morning sun rose over the farm, casting a warm light across the golden fields. Tom climbed onto Old Blue, the tractor that had been gone for weeks, and felt a deep sense of peace. The engine's steady hum was like music to his ears. After all the struggles, this was the moment he had waited for, the chance to finish the harvest. Tom drove the tractor carefully across the fields. The crops swayed in the gentle breeze, ready to be gathered and saved for the coming months. With every pass of the tractor, the heavy work became lighter. Tom smiled, knowing the farm was alive again. Neighbors stopped by throughout the day to watch and help. Mrs. Green brought lemonade and a warm smile. "It's good to see you working again, Tom," she said. "We all missed Old Blue." Mr. Lewis waved from his shop. "The farm looks better than ever. I'm proud of you." Tom felt grateful for the kindness. He knew he was lucky to live in a place where people cared. The struggles with the HOA still lingered in his mind, but for now, he focused on the work that mattered most: the land. In the afternoon, Tom met with Karen and 2 HOA members at the edge of the farm. They came to see how the new parking plan was working and to talk about the future. Tom was nervous but ready to speak openly. Karen looked around the fields, then back at Tom. "I can see how important this farm is, Tom. And I want to thank you for working with us. I think we're moving toward a better understanding." Tom nodded. "I'm glad, Karen. I want peace, too. The farm and the community can grow together." Mr. Roberts added, "Maybe we can create new rules that respect the lease and protect the neighborhood." Tom smiled. "That sounds good. I want to be a good neighbor." The meeting ended with a plan to work together. The HOA would review their rules to include farms with state leases, and Tom promised to keep communication open. As the sun began to set, Tom looked out over the fields. The harvest was halfway done, and the tractor hummed quietly in the barn. The farm felt alive again, not just with crops but with hope. That night, Tom sat on his porch, feeling the cool breeze and listening to the sounds of the night. He thought about the journey, the long days of struggle, the fight for his tractor, and the neighbors who stood by him. His phone rang. It was Sarah from the state office. "Tom, the state wants to support a small celebration for your harvest. We want to honor your hard work and the partnership with the community." Tom felt a warmth in his heart. "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot." Over the next few days, the community prepared for the harvest celebration. Neighbors helped set up tables, bring food, and decorate the barn with lights and flowers. Even Karen came by, smiling and helping to hang decorations. On the day of the celebration, people from the village gathered at Tom's farm. There was music, laughter, and plenty of food. Children ran through the fields, their faces full of joy. Tom looked around and felt proud. At one point, Karen stood up to speak. "This farm is part of our community," she said. "We learned a lot from Tom's story. We are committed to working together with farmers and neighbors. Today is a new beginning." Tom smiled and thanked everyone. He knew the journey was not over, but this moment was a victory. As the sun set and the stars appeared, Tom stood by Old Blue, feeling grateful and hopeful. The farm was more than land and crops, it was a symbol of hard work, friendship, and respect. Tom looked forward to many more seasons on this land, knowing he was not alone. Together, the farm and the community would grow stronger. The cool autumn breeze carried the sweet smell of harvested crops through the air. Tom stood near the barn, watching the last of the harvest being loaded onto trucks. The hard work was almost done, and for the first time in weeks, Tom felt a deep peace in his heart. The fight over the tractor and the land had been long and difficult. But now, with Old Blue back where it belonged, and the farm thriving, Tom could finally breathe easy. The lease with the state was respected, and the HOA had started to understand the importance of his work. It was a new beginning, not only for Tom but for the whole community. The harvest celebration had brought everyone closer together. Tom had seen neighbors who had never spoken before sharing stories, laughter, and warm food. Even Karen, once the strict and distant HOA manager, had changed. She had listened, learned, and now worked with Tom to make sure the farm and the neighborhood could live side by side peacefully. One morning, as Tom walked through the fields, he felt the soft earth beneath his boots and the cool sun on his face. His thoughts traveled to the years before the conflict, the quiet mornings with his father teaching him to care for the land, the sounds of birds in the trees, and the simple joy of planting seeds and watching them grow. Tom knew that those memories and lessons had helped him through the toughest days. The land was more than soil and crops, it was life, hope, and family. At the edge of the field, Tom spotted a small group of children playing. Their laughter filled the air, and Tom smiled. He remembered when he was a boy, running through these very fields, dreaming of the future. Now, he wanted to teach them the same love and respect for the land. Later that afternoon, Karen came to the farm. She carried a small notebook and a friendly smile. "Tom," she said, "I've been thinking. The HOA would like to create a new program to help local farmers. We want to support you and others, so no one has to go through what you did." Tom was surprised but pleased. "That's wonderful, Karen. I'm happy to help. We can work together to make this a better place for everyone." They talked for a while, making plans to meet with other farmers and neighbors. Tom felt hopeful about the future, a future where everyone could share the land, respect its value, and work together. As the sun began to set, Tom stood beside Old Blue. The tractor looked strong and ready, like an old friend waiting for the next season. Tom reached out and touched the worn metal, feeling the connection to the past and the promise of tomorrow. He thought about the journey, the confusion, the struggle, and the hard battles, but also the support of neighbors, the help of the state, and the change in the HOA. It had been a test of patience, courage, and faith. Tom smiled to himself. The farm was not just his work, it was his home, his history, and his future. That night, as stars filled the sky, Tom sat on his porch with a cup of warm tea. The sounds of the night were peaceful, and the land rested under the moonlight. He whispered softly, "Thank you, Father. I will take care of this land, and I will never give up." The farm had been saved, the tractor returned, and the community had found a new way to live together. Tom knew that challenges might come again, but he was ready. With Old Blue by his side and friends around him, Tom was stronger than ever. This was a new beginning, a story of hope, respect, and the power of standing firm for what matters most. And the land, golden and full of life, would carry that story for generations to come.